In the year 1066, one of the most pivotal battles in English history took place on a hilltop near the small town of Hastings. This battle would forever change the course of English history and shape the future and face of Europe. Today, we're diving into the events leading up to the Battle of Hastings, the key players involved, and how a single day of combat crowned a new King of England. Welcome back, I am Jarlbear for the History Armada, and this is part 3 of our 3-part series about the Conquest of England in 1066, with our finale, the Battle of Hastings. The story begins with the death of England's King Edward the Confessor in January of 1066. Edward, who had no direct heirs, left the kingdom in a precarious position. There were several claimants to the throne and tensions were rising. As you are well aware, there were several battles, such as the Battle of Stamford Bridge that we discussed 2 weeks ago, that led up to what would be the Battle of Hastings. One of the strongest contenders for the throne was Harold Godwinson, a powerful noble and Edward's brother-in-law. Harold was crowned king shortly after Edward's death, but not everyone accepted his claim. Across the English Channel, Duke William of Normandy believed that Edward had promised the throne to him years earlier. William began gathering an invasion force to take what he believed was rightfully his, as we discussed last week with our deep dive into William the Conqueror. From left to right, we have Edward the Confessor, Harold Godwinson, and William of Normandy. So, with that in mind, our story continues. Meanwhile, to the north, another rival, Harald Hardrada of Norway, also sought the English crown. In September of 1066, Harold Godwinson had to fend off Harald Hardrada's invasion at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, as we discussed 2 weeks ago. A battle that ended in the victory for the English, but weakened Harold Godwinson's forces, just as another invasion was looming. That was also one of the key events that ended the Viking Age. William, Duke of Normandy, was an experienced military leader, and gathered a fleet of ships and thousands of troops that we discussed last week, and he crossed the Channel in late September of 1066. His army consisted of knights, archers, infantry, and mercenaries, all eager for conquest and land in the rich kingdom of England. The Normans landed at Pevensey on the southern coast of England, and quickly established a stronghold. As William fortified his position, Harold and his exhausted troops marched south to face this new threat. On October 14th, 1066, the two armies were to meet near the town of Hastings on Senlac Hill. Harold Godwinson's army, made up mostly of infantry, took a defensive position on the high ground of the hill, kinda pictured there on your left. On the right is the modern day hill where this battle took place. So on the left you can see pictured how they would align with their shields in a defensive position on the hill, trying to use whatever high ground advantage they can gather from the small hill that they had on the battlefield. Using this defensive position, his forces formed a shield wall, a formidable defensive tactic used by the Anglo-Saxons for centuries as well as their more Norse counterparts. If you want to deep dive into the shield wall tactic and how it was used to prolong battles, I do have a battle about that, so check that out. So in contrast, William's army was diverse. His Norman knights were highly trained and they rode in on horseback, a significant advantage against foot. The battle began with the Norman archers firing volleys of arrows at Harold's shield wall, but the arrows had little effect against the tightly packed ranks of the English at first. William then ordered his infantry and cavalry to attack in waves, as we can see pictured here. In red is the Saxons, in the blue to the south is the Normans. So they fought rank after rank, push after push, and it was a lot of back and forth and a lot of struggle. And they struggled really heavily to break through the English lines, and that shield wall, it held firm for the longest time. It really is impressive how this exhausted Saxon's shield wall held for such a time. The Normans even began to retreat, and the rumors began to spread that William the Conqueror had been killed and that they were without a leader. William, however, seeing the panic amongst his troops, acted swiftly. He raised his helmet, taking off the face guard to show his face, rallying his soldiers, showing them their leader was still alive. He shouted to his men, "I am here, I am here," and his soldiers continued to fight. The Normans then employed a clever tactic. They pretended to retreat, something we now call a feint, drawing sections of the English army away from their defensive position, taking them out piecemeal. This was the turning point of the Battle of Hastings. The English shield wall began to break apart, and the Normans, they seized the opportunity. A fierce melee followed, and the battle raged on for hours. According to legend, King Harold Godwinson was killed during the battle, famously struck in the eye by an arrow, though some accounts suggest he may have been cut down by Norman knights during the feint. With their king dead, the English army began to collapse, and William's forces gained the upper hand. By the end of the day, on October 14th, the Normans stood victorious on the battlefield. William's victory at Hastings was complete with the fall of King Harold. The path to the English throne was now clear, and on Christmas Day 1066, William was to be crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey, earning him the title William the Conqueror. The Battle of Hastings marked the beginning of the Norman conquest of England, a process that would reshape the country's culture, language, and governance. The Normans introduced a new aristocracy, built monumental castles, and forever altered the English landscape. The consequences of 1066 would echo throughout history, influencing not just England, but all of Europe. With this, we see a reshaping and a reforming of what it meant to be English and what the English monarchy actually was like. With this turning point, we see the shift into the Norman culture and the evolution of modern English society and aristocracy. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into pivotal moments of history. Let us know in the comments what historical events you'd like us to cover next, and if you have any comments you would like to add in. So in this Battle of Hastings, you get to see a huge influence of cavalry, mounted knights, and the way it can change battles. That feint and the feigned retreat that they were able to pull off against the Saxon shield wall turned the battle undeniably. Also, this is a great example of how the shield wall was actually used in historical battles. With shows like The Last Kingdom and Vikings, we get a lot of shield walls, and a lot of it is just, well, Hollywood cinema, to be frank. It looks cool, and I love it, but it's just not accurate to how it was used. However, in this instance, it's an instance of how it was actually used. They used the high ground, they formed a tightly packed shield wall to try and extend the battle to wear out the attacking troops. So, the Normans, they have to march uphill into a solid shield wall and try to break it up. It's exhausting. So after rank, they're thrown back until finally, with that feigned retreat and the use of the mounted knights, the Normans were able to take victory from the jaws of defeat. This battle is really a fascinating battle and a really iconic battle when it comes to the Viking Age, the end of it, and the Norman conquest. I enjoyed this battle, and I really enjoy this piece of English history. I hope you did as well, and hope you do find this interesting. Again, thank you so much for watching, and if you have any comments, or if I got something wrong, do make sure you leave that in the comment sections. I love to have a conversation with you guys. In the description of the video, you can also find things such as my gaming channel, where I play a lot of games like Total War, so if you're into historical, battles like that, Bannerlord, role-playing games, I play all kinds of things, so if you want to check that out, the link is there for you. Additionally, my Twitter, so you can keep up to date with what is happening on the channel, and my Patreon if you ever want to support me monetarily. But that's enough for me. I will see you in your next weekly dose of history. I am Jarl Bear for the History Armada. Thank you so much for watching.